All right, so my focus in terms of the UDL guidelines was clarifying the meaning and purpose of goals, as well as optimizing challenge and support for our students. The resource I'm looking at is actually called Clusive. It's a literacy tool. It's just a program that students can access text through, and it has a bunch of really cool scaffolding tools to help support students to meet them where they're at in order to interpret and look at different texts. Um, it's actually something developed by CAST. I found it on their resources tab on their website. It's very simple and intuitive to use. Signing in is really easy, especially if you use like Google Sign In. Um, and same thing for adding classes. You can just add a class and create manually and have your students join it after they make an account. Or if you have a Google Classroom, it will actually import the class for you. So it's integrated with that, which is really nice. Um, and then once you have that class, you can assign different readings, right? Give students options in the text they have to read, which is a big important part in terms of clarifying meaning and purpose of goals. It gives them options to kind of tie these literacy skills to their own lives and communities by giving them options and what kind of text they can choose from. And there are tons of options. Um, there's tons of public readings that are available from books to articles. Um, and you can even upload your own, like this one that I've uploaded, although it does not actually recommend PDFs, so don't do that. Use like EPUBs if you can. It just works better with the programs, which I can show you now. I'll go back to public readings. It's really, really good at specifically the optimizing, the challenge and support. It's incredibly useful for that. Uh, for example, if you can click on one of these articles, and the first thing it's always going to do is it's going to like give me a little vocab quiz to see what words do I know. Like I've heard of contaminate, but I don't necessarily know what it means, or I know the word, but I don't really use it. Oh, maintenance, yeah, I use it all the time. Or I've never heard of minimize. I don't know what that means, or I use Situate all the time, right? And then it's actually going to take that information, and it's going to kind of set the text at the appropriate challenge level. So it actually will change the text and its complexity depending on where the student's at to make sure that they're in a position where they're productively struggling, right? So it's not so complex that they can't really understand it, but it's not too oversimplified that it's boring. And you can it obviously recommends one of these kind of tiers, but you can always change that. And then even for texts that you necessarily don't that oh let me just go back this way. That's quicker. So even for texts that don't necessarily have other versions, right? Like texts you upload yourself, or books, for example, are not going to have this. There's still a ton of other great uh, kind of scaffolding tools help differentiate the challenge level, to make sure students are at a place where they still feel like, they can approach this text, but it does so in a way that still maintains that high, kind of warm demander, high uh, expectations, where you're saying, no, you can understand this text, you just need the proper support to do it. And the way that works is you can highlight any section and it'll do things like it'll translate for you for if you have ESL learners. I have it set to Spanish, but they have a ton of different language options. Um, it simplifies the text for them, and it can even show pictures too with that simplify to kind of help, um, that kind of more visual side of learning. Uh, Over here, it's got tons of settings, including, I'm sure you've noticed throughout the site, I have it right now set to Open Dyslexic, which is actually a um, font that's supposed to help people with dyslexia to be able to read better. So you can set it to text size, line spacing. It has reading tools where it can read out the text for you in different voices. Um, It's all really good. Over here, it kind of lets you take notes and respond to the reading. Down here is also where there would be questions. If you assign a text, you can also assign questions to them, so that's where they would appear. And it saves all of this too, right? So if we go to our word bank, uh, it saves where you're at with the different words. You can even change them. There's a little celebration. Uh, So it kind of saves where you're at. So you always kind of know where you are in terms of your vocabulary, and then also just the complexity of text you're engaging with when it does change those for you. It's really good, I think, for helping kind of giving students options for text to look at, and for ensuring students are like given the tools necessary to productively struggle towards, developing those literacy skills and understanding the text without it, being too challenging or frustratingly difficult. So yeah, it's the resource I had, Occlusive.